Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of Wellness Matters. I'm your host, Heather Crocchio. And as usual, today I have a really fun guest that I'm really interested to have this conversation. One, I feel like it's not being discussed enough, basically in multiple levels of the world. I don't know. I don't really hear much about it other than what I'm reading and purposely going out and seeking. And so I'm so glad that I have Sydney Arkfeld here with me today to discuss what she does for a living in her career and how she got into this realm and what it all actually means. So she works with clients on subconscious healing and she helps them release trapped emotions. And I've actually talked about how I believe that our emotions can get trapped if we don't release them or work through them all the way to be released. And then if they're trapped over time, it can really start to wreak havoc on your life and cause you to be out of alignment. But that's just something that like my intuition says. So I'm super excited to be talking to you, Sydney, who's somebody who actually works with people on releasing trapped emotions. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say about what you do every single day. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here today with me.
thank you for having me on. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I actually found Sydney on Instagram because I really love following her now and seeing some of her reels because she can make like this bigger topic and make them into like little bite-sized chunks that are easier to digest and understand. So, anyways, we can start from basically how did you get into this work, and then we can kind of do like little bits and
Yeah.
pieces of what you're doing every single day with your clients. So
Yeah.
what got you into this field to begin with?
Well, no one wakes up and thinks I'm going to get into the trauma world and emotional world and releasing trapped emotions world. Probably if you told me that 10 years ago, I would have been like, "Oh my gosh, that
No
is
way.
crazy. That's crazy."
Yeah.
But so I grew up very healthy most of my life. I never had many issues. But I was around a lot of traumatic situations and dealt with a lot of things that my body necessarily probably didn't process
Yeah.
correctly. Now I was in therapy most of my life, but it's great to talk about your feelings and things, but then things weren't changing. I never
Right.
saw things change, severe panic attacks, health problems, not knowing how to put up boundaries, many different things that people don't think about.
Right.
And our body truly does keep score. And so I never knew that. And at least the therapist I was going to growing up didn't talk about that.
Mine
So
either.
fast forward to, sorry, what was that?
I said mine either.
And nothing against therapists. I still see a therapist to this day. I believe they have a good spot for certain things, but if you have emotional symptoms and physical symptoms still going on, you may need to dig deeper. But in 2019, I got very, very sick. I moved into an apartment um, just fresh out of, well, not fresh out of high school, but a couple years after high school, and 2018, 2019, probably. And probably within 3 months, I started getting really, really sick. Like, couldn't explain it, running into walls, neurological symptoms. My life turned upside down pretty much. I was working two jobs, I was going to school, so I chalked it up to being that. Of course, the psychiatrist I was seeing, and again, I was heavily on antidepressants, anti anxiety medication most of my life because they just told me, due to how my parents were, I should just get on top of it and get on these medications to
Hmm.
nip it in the butt, which I also believed played a role in a lot of symptoms and things I experienced as well, now looking back. But
Right.
anyways, so that started happening. Doctors were calling me, "You're fine, it's just anxiety." So I went to my psychiatrist. Of course, he gave me more medication. And things just kept getting worse. I actually had a huge reaction to Prozac. Didn't sleep for 9 days straight. Had severe akathisia. It's a hard word.
Yeah.
Um, Had a horrible reaction, and then right there, when I had not slept for 9 days, and the mental health psychiatrist world was like, "Figure it out." Like, just threw me, didn't do anything when I was, like, losing my mind. I mean, you don't sleep for 9 days, you literally
No,
can
exactly.
only imagine. So, that's when I was like, "Screw this." I found a functional practitioner and, um, still living in my apartment, but walked into her and pretty much she was like, "Oh my gosh," like, couldn't believe what I looked like. Like, she literally was like, "Couldn't believe these doctors are telling me I was fine." Now, also during the time, I had a really toxic relationship in the family. I was under insane amounts of stress. My parents did get divorced when I was 16. I'm the oldest. That took a huge toll on me.
Mm,
So there was a lot of things also going on stress wise and trauma wise on top of this toxin exposure. So it took me a while to figure out mold was causing some of my symptoms, but at the same time, my nervous system was so dysregulated that this toxin was just taking over my body even more. So, finally figure out it's mold. I ended up moving out. I probably figured it out finally a year later, just from literally doing my own research,
right,
because at that point, that's what you have to do. And so, I move out, I'm starting to treat functional, but a year and a half, 2 years go by, and I had symptoms relief, definitely, from getting out of the mold. So if you're listening to this and people tell you mold toxicity is not a problem, it is. Like, no one should be living in tons amounts of mold. But then this comes to mold is also everywhere in small amounts. We can't avoid it everywhere we go. So that's
right,
where that nervous system, regulation comes into play.
right. So if you're um in a place where you're being exposed, that's one thing. But if you're in a place where you're being exposed to mold and you have some severe stress and anxiety and all the other life stressors going on, you're going to probably take on more of that toxic entity
Yep.
more into the body, right?
Yeah, I mean, I lived with a roommate. She had a cough and stuff, but she didn't get as sick as I got. Moved out, was
Right.
totally fine, where it wrecked my body. And so, you know, I had done protocol after protocol. I had worked with practitioner after practitioner. Finally, it was just like, I don't know what to do next. I mean, like, I was just like, I don't know what to do. Um, I also was still throwing myself into those severe panic attacks, constantly in fight or flight due to family situations,
Mm,
constantly on edge. No wonder my body wasn't healing,
right.
right?
Right.
My body wasn't in parasympathetic mode to do the work that our body is made to do.
To detox.
Yep. Yeah. So throwing every pill, throwing every protocol, but nothing, I was just kind of getting worse in a sense. I started reacting to every supplement, every protocol I even did because my nervous system was just so heightened. Any little thing trying to switch and change, my body was like overloaded and just done.
Wow.
So then in 2020, I came across, it was probably end of 2020. I could look back, but it was that year. I came across releasing trapped emotions, subconscious healing. And honestly, I came across it on Instagram from other people who had been doing it who were chronically ill and who had severe like trauma, nervous system dysregulation, and different things. Just people like literally posting testimonies. And when you see testimonies, of course, you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to look into this.
Right.
Now, I had tried many different energetic healing things actually before this, and nothing really stuck. Again, therapy wasn't sticking. I went in thinking I have nothing to lose. I
Yeah.
don't really believe in this, quite
Right.
frankly. But you know what? What else am I going to do? So I started seeing someone who, released trapped emotions, limiting beliefs, all the different things. And I will never forget after that first session, like, I'll probably start crying, but like how calm my body felt. Like, I was like, this is what calmness feels like. Like, I can't believe I have been living like this for so long. You
Wow.
think about many people say, well, I don't have trauma, I don't have this, but little things can be traumatic to our body. If you are a workaholic, if you are constantly someone who's go, go, go,
Yep.
has a mile long list of things, can't sit still, can't relax, like there's things that, in traits we have that we don't realize that actually could be harming our body. So, I'm laying there and I feel so calm. And I was like, at this point, if this is all that happens, I'm going to take it. Like,
Yep.
if this is all that's going to happen from these sessions, it's worth it. So, it's not a one and done thing. So, of course, my practitioner was like, okay, like your body tested for another one in whatever it was, a 1 week, 2 weeks.
Can I stop you for 1 second? What was the practitioner doing? Like, what did he or she do in that very first session to make you feel calm? What did he do?
Yeah, so it was a girl, and she pretty much what she did was she was tapping into my nervous system through muscle testing and applied kinesiology. For listeners, and are you familiar with muscle testing at all?
I am, but I was going to ask you if you could
For
explain what that
listeners.
is.
Yeah. So for listeners that don't know, I'm going to try and dumb it down as possible, like as best as I can. But muscle testing is something where we are able to tap into the nervous system and find what causes weakness or stresses out the nervous system in a sense. So, you hear people who get these polygraphs done. They're literally, that's kind of what's happening. They're finding out, lies or weaknesses in that person's body. And that's why the polygraph like starts going off.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously I'm not hooking people up, and I wasn't hooked up to all this equipment. We're just using simple muscle testing. So I use with my clients a pendulum and my finger. Some people may do the sway test. But what we're doing is we're saying certain things and with intention and testing it against the nervous system. And so if it stresses out the nervous system, the muscle will go weak. If it's good for the nervous system, it will go strong. So what she was doing is she was tapping in. And now I told her a couple things. What's crazy is I only told her a couple things. I didn't go in depth about everything.
Right.
Um, I just told her my top goals and what was stressing me out a little bit, but I didn't go into details. And so from that, she took that and then started testing from things that were causing dysfunction in my nervous system, whether that's trapped emotions, limiting beliefs, negative emotions that were technically preventing my body from relaxing, sleeping, less anxiety, healing physically and mentally. And so it's super cool because when she was telling me, not only did I feel calm, well, she's going over everything. And I'm like, how did she know
How
this?
did you know?
Like, this all resonates. Like, anger was coming up. And I was a very angry person at that time, not to
Right.
other people, but I was angry like at my life, at how
Yeah.
people treated me. No
Being
one ever,
sick.
yeah.
Yeah.
So things were coming up that I was like, okay, this has something to it. Um, and so what happens is when she figures out those blocks and those emotions, she then releases them. She was releasing them from my nervous system. So when she got a weakness at first, then when she would go clear them at a cellular level, now everyone uses different things to clear. Some people may use a magnet, some people may use a laser, some people simply use certain intentions to clear. But then she would go in and muscle test to see if it was cleared. So then you get a strong muscle test instead, because that's no longer a stressor to your nervous system. Um,
And does it happen like instantaneously?
Yeah, so when you're releasing, the body starts releasing the emotions. I remember she was telling me, she's like, you may have detox symptoms. And I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to have detox symptoms from releasing trapped emotions. Like, what?
Yeah.
Um, oh no. And as sessions went on, I would be able to tell her where she was releasing before she told me where she was releasing, because I could feel that in my body.
Wow.
I could be like, oh, I felt pulling in my gallbladder. She's like, well, yeah, we just released some emotions in your gallbladder. But yeah, no, it happens right away. Now processing can take 24 to 48 hours. So, when I work with clients, I always tell people you might not notice big things happening right away. It might take a week, it might take a little bit, but technically the energy starts to release right away. Yes.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
so amazing.
Yeah.
So after you had this session with her, was that when you decided, okay, this is what I want to do for my career path?
No, I actually was starting to post on TikTok kind of just about holistic health, like
Hmm.
how to help people heal mold toxicity, the physical toxin things. So, no, my goal was to become an integrative health practitioner, which I did obtain down the road. But my goal was to work with people on that side of things with supplements and protocols. So, it probably a year and a half I did the work before I switched my mind on that's what I wanted to do.
Wow.
So I wish I could go count how many sessions. I still do them to this day for myself, but how many sessions I had done until I decided, okay, this is what I want to do.
So you were like kind of resisting it for a little bit?
Yeah, and I didn't think and I like didn't really know. I never thought that I could see myself helping people in that realm. So it wasn't really resistance at first. It was more just like I didn't feel a calling to it. Like I
Mm.
thought my calling was helping people on more the physical side. And
Right. The
so
things, yeah. And I feel like those are things that most people do talk about. No one really talks about the subconscious level of things like trapped emotions side because you can't see it, but
yeah,
you can see if you have a rash. So it's easier to have those conversations with somebody so somebody doesn't think that you're going crazy or whatever, or think that it's all made up. And this is what I hope that can happen more and more for people is the more content there is out there explaining what this side of the work is, the emotional side, the things that you can't actually see, and we can normalize that, then I feel it's going to really take off and people can seek different types of treatment and actually feel better, and maybe not with just a band-aid type thing.
yeah,
And so, yeah,
yeah, I
maybe you
agree.
did feel like a little bit of resistance to the idea of, well, are people even going to come to me because they even understand this kind of thing, you know?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. No, and I did multiple sessions at the beginning, where it's like every week and then every 2 weeks. Eventually you start tailoring back. But when I started having crazy physical symptom relief, that's I think when I switched to, okay, I want to do this. There's something to this. Like, why is this relieving physical symptoms? Or if we strengthen our nervous system, we can heal better.
Right.
Like, I'll just share a couple stories, like, the top 2 things that I was sleeping better, I had more energy, I had more motivation, I had a lot of different things happen, but I had not been driving for, like, 3 weeks a couple years ago because I had had a huge flare, and I just was super anxious for no reason. Well, I had a session, and right after, calm felt like a giant elephant was lifted off my chest. I went and drove, didn't have one panic attack, was totally fine driving, like, things that would start to relieve, like, physically, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I caught the dreaded virus." I'm not gonna go in because I know, but you get you know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I caught the dreaded virus, my lungs were just not up to par after, and so I had a session, and literally right after that session, I finally could take a deep breath again. Like it felt like an elephant had been lifted off of my chest. And so there was just so many physical things that started happening and changes. And I see that with clients. I sometimes am going to be honest, I am shocked when I get these emails like this happened physically. And I'm like I know it can happen, but it's like still it amazes me to
Because
this
it's
day.
so powerful and it's so crazy. I know, I understand what you're saying. I feel like it's such a hard concept to wrap your brain around because you can't see the emotions. You can't see where they're technically lodged or why they're there or how they got there, or you just know somehow you're getting relief and somebody did something to help
Yeah.
you. So, but it really is a hard thing to really grasp because again, it's not how our society, it's not how we talk. It's not what we see. It's not what our doctors are telling us and our family members. And so, yeah, I can't imagine the gratification you're getting out of, helping all these people, but also just man, I can't believe this is really real.
Yeah. It's like I genuinely love doing it.
Yeah,
Yes, it's a job. Yes, it helps me financially. Obviously, it's a job, but it's a job I have passion for. It's a job that, I truly care about everyone I work with and I genuinely want change. And, I am there for that person. I am there for them in whatever phase of life they are in. I have seen a lot of people are chronically ill. I see just because that's what my page used to be. And that's why if you follow me after this, and I'm sure you saw scrolling down,
yeah,
I used to focus on the toxin and the physical part a lot. Um, but then I switched my content to mainly this because, of how powerful it is. And, you know, many people already have that functional practitioner. Many people already have that, and this could be their missing link. And it's kind of cool seeing now a lot of functional practitioners are starting to have their clients find someone who does stuff like this.
absolutely. Can you explain how does emotions actually get trapped to begin
Yeah.
with? What is the
Yeah.
process of that?
So a good way to explain it is so our subconscious runs 95% of the show, right? Our actions, our thoughts, our day to day is running on our subconscious. So what happens is we can trap emotions from when we were a baby up until now. But certain events or triggers or different things that happen is when that is put into our subconscious in our body. So an example I give to people time to time is I my mom almost died when I was younger. And I really didn't understand the depth of it, but I was brought to the ICU to see her. And I was only 6, but I locked myself in the bathroom after I saw her, passed out, was throwing up, white as a ghost. Of course, my grandparents felt terrible because they're like, "Oh my gosh, maybe she shouldn't have seen her in that spot." But I had severe health anxiety ever since then. Like, no matter what, we would go to a doctor, we would do blood, I would hear monitors, my body would go into fight or flight. I would start sweating, heart racing, throw up.
Wow.
So, what happens in certain situations, those emotions, that cellular memory of those sounds, what you were maybe drinking that day, where you were at the hospital for sense, when I go into a hospital now from now on, my fight or flight just goes off because subconsciously my body remembered that. So, events, I mean, it doesn't have to be a crazy event though. It could be a simple argument with your loved one of them saying you're not worthy or you are lazy. And then different things like that, words literally get imprinted into our body. Now, they can get imprinted in different spots. Um, like lungs hold grief, the liver can hold anger, the kidneys can hold fear. So, the cellular memory gets imprinted into our body during those times.
So, what could somebody do? I mean, we can't process every emotion that we're going through every single day and still go through life and be productive per se. So how can somebody, okay, say you're in like a situation where you had an argument with somebody
Mhm.
and then you're finished with the argument and you go somewhere else. Is that when you should start processing what just happened, and like how would you remove the trauma of that argument so it's not
Yeah.
still embedded?
So there's different ways. There's tapping, there's EFT tapping.
Yep.
I'm not certified in that, but I give that as a tool to my clients. It's
Mm,
pretty simple to learn on your own if you just YouTube it. There's tapping, there's simply processing your emotions, being mad, crying. Crying is a huge way to process emotions. Um, People don't realize what happens when we cry. We start to release stress hormones. It helps our parasympathetic nervous system. There's a lot of
mhm.
different things that happen. So, actually feeling those, not shoving them down and acting like that tough person or acting like it didn't bother you. And it also depends on the situation, if that's someone maybe you need to have boundaries around,
Mm,
so that's not continuously happening. But there is also learning how to speak up for yourself. There's many different ways we can go day to day and be able to process these emotions, but I mean, journaling, there's so
yeah.
many different ways.
I also own my own preschool, and so I work with little kids every single day, and I
Yeah.
have for years and years. And I have two kids of my own, and it's one of the things that I've really started to understand is when a child is actually angry. I feel like a lot of times as adults, we're like, don't scream, don't yell, don't be so much, of you that's in such a loud capacity because it's not like socially acceptable to be having a tantrum or to completely like tire yourself out from that emotion. But would
Mhm.
you say that that child needs to be fully expressed so that way they can move on to and maybe not hold on to that trauma of whatever the situation was?
Yeah. And another thing is people don't realize some root emotions to anger can be frustration, anxiety, not feeling heard. And
Hmm.
so being able to express this, most of my life growing up, I was told not to cry.
Yeah.
Stop crying. Suck it
Yeah.
up.
Don't cause
So
a scene.
yeah. So when we're not feeling these emotions and we're not letting our kids or ourself feel these emotions, that's how they can get trapped.
Wow. We were just Sydney and I were just talking before we started recording how I kind of had a crappy night of sleep last night, and it's something that's been plaguing me for years and years and years. Like, why is it that I start to go into kind of like panic mode? It's nothing like it used to be. I've done a lot of work around it. But as I was driving today to the gym, I was thinking back to when I was a kid, and there was a time when I was terrified to go to sleep at night because I was having a reoccurring dream about a witch chasing me. And every time I would try to get down to my parents' room, I would have like paralysis of some kind and I couldn't get down the stairs and I would try to scream for them and nothing would come out. And the witch was getting closer and closer. And so I didn't want to go to sleep because I didn't want to have this dream again. And so just today, like I've thought about this reoccurring dream that I had, but I never really realized that that might have been around the time when I started to be afraid of sleep at times because it's like such a natural thing. Why would you be afraid of sleep? It's like breathing.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there is something in my mind that something was a memory was made of some kind. And then when I start to struggle with going to sleep, it kind of, goes back to that memory of sleep is scary,
Yeah.
So
Subconsciously, and there's many things that come up with clients that they're like, I don't feel like I think that. Well, maybe 20 years ago, your mind thought that when you were a kid.
yes, yeah.
So it's still affecting you, even if you don't think it to this day.
So is there anything that I could do to possibly release that trapped trauma, or is that something like I would have to go to a practitioner to see? How would that work?
So, more in depth situations that may have been going on for a while, usually I would say that's where the
Mm,
practitioner probably comes into play
yeah.
because you may have more than just like fear being held.
Yeah.
You may have limiting beliefs, you may have things that need to be released on that subconscious level. But to help through that journey, like EFT tapping could be great.
True.
Now, for those listening who are like, I might not be able to afford to jump in and start
Right.
working with a practitioner. Emotion code is one of the things I'm certified in. And he has a whole book on it, on how to release singular emotions yourself. And so if you listen to this and you're like, this sounds like me, I feel like I could benefit from this work, but you're maybe not ready to jump in working with someone one on one right away, go get the emotion code book, because not only is he teaching you how to muscle test, he's teaching you how to release singular emotions. And so working with that yourself and kind of seeing if that relieves some stuff, at night, if you have a kiddo that can't sleep and is scared of the dark, okay, let's test and see, is there some fear that needs to be released? Go release the fear and then see if that helps. And so I would say that's a great place for people to start to
That
read
is.
about trapped emotions and kind of getting a feel for it.
Is there like any memorable clients that you had where you're like, wow, I can't believe it turned out this way or that was released? Like, is there something like off the top
Yeah,
of your head that you could maybe give an example of this kind of cool work?
yeah, I have one that this was after one session. Now I'm going to preface, this crazy testimony doesn't usually happen after one session. Um, but she's given me permission to talk about this just so everyone's listening knows that. But she unfortunately had a traumatic injury from a surgeon who sewed her, I believe it's into her intestinal wall to her muscle. Something was wrong. They sewed something physically wrong, stitched it wrong. And so everything's kind of torqued, severe pain, can't eat normal. You can only
Wow.
imagine the symptoms if something was sewed wrong
Right,
inside of you.
right.
So she came to see me. Actually, a friend had recommended her to me, and she didn't know anything about it. She's like, I'm just here, do what you do. I'm open to it. And so I went in and literally just used my muscle testing. Yes, she had told me about a couple different things she wanted to focus on, but she didn't tell me in depth about everything. And so I went through and muscle tested, found certain emotions trapped in her ileocecal valve, in her connective tissue. Actually, she had a couple of resentment against doctors, different things coming up that anger, so many different things. So went ahead and released that. And I kid you not, right after, she's messaging me. She's like, what did you do? She's like, what did you do? I'm like, oh no, what did I
You
do?
mad? Yeah.
And she's like, I'm eating. She's like, I don't have pain right now. Like, she was in constant agonizing pain all the time. I mean, you can only imagine when it's a physical injury. And so her pain had lightened up. All of a sudden, she's like, I just wore makeup. I feel excited for life. Then I get a message the next day. She's like, she was only able to sleep on one side, I believe, due to just like her injury, right? And it was still painful. She was able to lay on the side of the injury without pain and she was
Wow.
sleeping. Um, she is on social media, and I saw her bloom into another person the next day, posting a ton. People were like, you look brighter. Like, what happened? Like, you seem very happy. So she, to this day, is like the pain really, like, of course she still deals with, it's not, everything's not completely gone,
Right.
but the amount of relief she has stuck. So that is one of my favorite stories, honestly. I have a lot, but that was one of that sticks out because it's like it was a physical injury.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's amazing because so I'm assuming that she couldn't go back into surgery and have them correct it?
No, no, it just like once it was like that, and they also took her years. She had to figure it out on her own that they did that to her. They kind of pretty much gaslit her and said it didn't, they don't know what's wrong, why she's having that. And she's the one who learned how to read um, CT scans herself and found it. So
Wow.
no, and they can't correct it. I don't know why. They couldn't. So she's kind of dealt with it for a long, long time. So
Wow. She must be so thankful that she ran across
mm,
you. Holy cow.
yeah.
One of the things that you talked about on one of your reels is how even our hair can hold memory. Can you explain that?
Yes. So our hair is actually an extension of our nervous system, believe it or not. When you it's like your nerves. I mean, our hair holds sensory nerves and all those different things, but it's able to catch up on threats and scan the environment in a sense. It's kind of like an antenna to our nervous system. And so our hair can hold memories. So you probably have heard or probably have done it yourself. I can say I've done it many times where we go and we chop off all our hair after a breakup. We want
Yep.
to dye it a crazy color.
Yeah.
Um, we don't even want to look like ourselves. And then we do feel relief. We do feel like a weight had been lifted off of our shoulders after we go and chop, however many inches off. And so our hair holds on to emotions and cellular imprints and memories. So I have people that sometimes are like, I don't want to go and cut all my hair off because I know I'll regret it. So can we release some emotions and things
Wow.
in the hair? And so, yeah, our hair is simply an antenna to our nervous system. So we can literally trap emotions and beliefs and different things in our hair.
Wow. I think that was something that totally fascinated me years ago and really made me understand the mind body spirit connection fully, and how our bodies are always trying to communicate with us. And
Yeah.
you can, just like look and do a simple body scan on yourself and just see, how does my hair feel? How do my fingernails look? How does my tongue look? And
Mhm.
um really just use yourself as your own like detective, and look within, and communicate with yourself. Just those tiny little things is a good way to slowly increase that connection with yourself. So that makes total sense to me for the hair thing. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's definitely cool.
If you had to kind of sum up one major message to give to the listeners today on the subconscious, on trapped emotions, on living your life moving forward and being more aware, what's something that you might want to leave the listener with knowing?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is now in the world we live in with psychiatrists and the mental health care we have, and even with regular doctors on physical conditions, they put labels or the diagnoses on people right away. Um, I was brought into a psychiatrist's office at age 15. I was going through a parent's divorce. Of course, I was sad. Of course, I was
Right.
confused. Well, they just put a label of anxiety disorder, all these that are still on my charts to this day. But
Wow.
now the society is so fast to put diagnoses on and say, you're going to be like this forever. You're going to be bipolar forever. You're going to have anxiety disorder forever. You're going to have to live on this medication forever. And then also, when it comes to physical health, the one misconception that I think gets people away from the work I do, and it did for me at first, was you go with physical symptoms to these doctors and they tell you it's all in your head.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm sitting here saying, yes, some of these physical symptoms could be in our subconscious and in our body. Well, people think that's me saying, oh, you're crazy. Like it's in, which is what most of them we know are trying to get at when they're saying it's all in your head. They're not actually meaning like subconsciously and all those things. And so I would say, like, you can reverse a lot of things. And just because you have a diagnosis, whether that's emotional or physical, our nervous system is like, it's the key to everything. And
Right.
so when our nervous system is dysregulated and down, of course we're going to have symptoms emotionally and physically. It's just, what our body was made for. Our body was made to fight off, threats and bears. But the problem is when we're dysregulated, everything is going to seem like a bear.
Right.
Um, and so I would say that, key takeaway with this work is that, you can undo diagnoses. You can take back the power of maybe not being able to go in a grocery store or drive or live the life you want. And that subconscious healing and trapped emotion work doesn't mean that it's all in your head. It did get trapped literally in your body and your head, but that doesn't mean, you're crazy. There's a reason you are the way you are. You didn't just get these symptoms emotionally and physically for no reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And just knowing that there is other methods to feeling relief, and you can feel relief, you know, doing this type of work. So, I mean, and this is another question, but I mean, I can't imagine, would you think that there's actually a human out there that doesn't have some type of trapped emotion somewhere in their body? I would think that that's an ongoing thing all the time, and people kind of have them trapped daily. Is that
Yeah. No, I mean, we're going to trap emotions here and there, but I always tell my clients, I don't want to see you forever. I would not be doing my job. We
right?
want to build resiliency in our nervous system to where if we come across a situation, yeah, maybe we trap emotion, but it's not going to affect us as much as maybe a couple years ago when we were down and out. And
Right.
so we're going to come across stuff. I still come across stuff every day.
Right.
Myself, I cry sometimes. I get angry.
Yep.
It's part of who we are, but building that resiliency, we don't have to succumb to the effects of, trapped emotions as much.
Right. Right. Oh, such a great conversation. Thank you so much, Sydney, for joining me today. And I will be putting all of your information in the show notes so people can find you.
So,
And yes, thank you for coming here and thank you for doing this amazing work that you're doing for so many people. And I might have to come to you so you can tell me some of my trapped emotions.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. And to the listeners, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.